I paid $12,000 to learn directly from Billionaires, and in this video I'm going to share the top 6 lessons that I learned that are going to completely change how I build my businesses over the next 5 to 10 years. And I'm confident that if you sit through all 6 lessons, you're going to get a ton of value from the things that I learned directly from Elon Musk, Mark Benioff, the founder of Salesforce, Chamath, and Travis Kalanick, the founder of Uber. And just for a little bit of context here, the $12K that I spent was actually to the All-In conference, which was a conference put on by the All-In podcast, which is one of the top business and technology podcasts in the world. The tickets cost $7.5K, and with travel, food, and accommodation, it cost me about $12,000, which is a lot of money to spend just for 4 days, especially to spend all for myself. However, the value that I got was absolutely incredible, and I've had a ton of people ask me to share the lessons, which is exactly what I'm going to do here. And if you stick around to the 6th lesson, I'm going to share the lesson that I learned directly from Elon Musk, where he spoke about the biggest financial opportunity that is going to occur in the next 10 to 20 years. Now, the first lesson, I actually got a few minutes to speak to Chamath. I'm going to butcher the second name, but it's Palihapitiya, who, according to Forbes, is worth $1.2 billion, and he was actually a really early employee at Facebook. And when I got to speak to him, I said to him, if you were 26 years old again, what would you do in order to learn and grow really quick in business? And as you're about to see in the exact footage that I captured that day, here's what he said.
Well, I think you have 2 choices, which is you find a company that's growing really fast and just jump on to any job possible. You know, my friend Sheryl Sandberg has a saying, it doesn't matter the job you have when that job is on a rocket ship.
Yeah, okay.
So that's one way, which is see what's doing well and just be a part of it. The other alternative is to do something where you know you're going to fundamentally learn something good from somebody that you really look up to. And that's independent of the company. And so that's really that person that you're going to be interacting with on a day-to-day basis. You have 2 choices. I would do a format.
Yeah.
We really didn't know much of anything in Facebook, but we figured it out.
Follow the person. Follow the person, the rocket ship.
I followed the rockets.
Yeah, okay.
You were done.
Yeah. And from it,
You want?
thank you, John.
Yeah.
Indeed.
Bye.
So yeah, from Chamath himself, you can either join a rocket ship or you can join someone that is capable of building a rocket ship that you really want to learn from. So yeah, advice from a billionaire himself. You can obviously interpret it how you wish. Now, on to the second lesson. This actually came from a talk at the All-In Summit from a guy called Jake Lucerian. Apologies if I butchered the second name. But he actually is a CEO of a company called Gecko Robotics. And Gecko Robotics builds wall climbing robots, drones, and sort of dog-like robots, as you'll see on the screen here. But essentially what the robots do, they'll go all over structures, think bridges, dams, power plants, manufacturing facilities, to essentially build out a 3D map of those structures. And what they'll also do, they'll scan for all the vulnerabilities and identify any flaws in them. So businesses who've obviously got these multi-billion-dollar assets can better plan out the maintenance cycles and ultimately detect if there's any risks within these structures which could lead to disasters in the upcoming years. It's a fantastic business, and you know, the presentation that he put on, really the visualizations and how these robots work was incredible. But the lesson that I actually learned from this, so I did a civil engineering degree, which is all about building structures, and I actually worked at an engineering consultancy for a year as part of that degree. And that year was actually the year that made me decide that I wanted to go into entrepreneurship. And one of the big reasons why is when I was doing that year in industry, I spent half of that year working within the bridges team, inspecting bridges, building out maps of these bridges to identify any defects, and again, help businesses better plan the maintenance cycles and also design the repairs that needed to be done. And I absolutely hated it. The inspections part was boring. I hated like literally getting a pencil and drawing out the defects on the bridges to again help identify where the repairs needed to go. And the lesson that Jake's talk ultimately gave me was when I spent that year and I hated the work that we were doing, it pushed me into entrepreneurship. However, when Jake, don't know if he did a civil engineering degree, but he saw what was going on. He saw all of these maintenance, all of this slow manual work on paper, and he's ultimately turned that into $1 billion business. And I really liked the juxtaposition of how I saw that thing that was going on, and it pushed me away and it pushed me into a different area. But Jake saw that as an opportunity, and he ultimately saw what was going on and has turned it into a huge business, and has ultimately created technology which is going to save people's lives, and is already helping businesses save tens, maybe even hundreds of millions of dollars through better better planning these maintenance cycles. So I thought that was a really important lesson for me. And for you guys watching, I just think it's when you see a scenario and when there's something that you don't like, and if you see a problem, instead of turning away from it, just take a second, pause and see if there's an opportunity there, because you never know, there could be $1 billion business that is just waiting to be built. Now, moving on to lesson 3, just like how I got a little bit of time with Chamath, I also got a couple of minutes with Jason Calacanis. Jason Calacanis is the 4th investor in Uber. He also sold one of his first businesses for $30 million when he was like in his early 30s. So incredible, successful guy. As you'll see, I actually got a video with him, which I'll just play now.
I need everybody to rate, subscribe, hit the bell. It's right down here. Rate, subscribe. Let's get these numbers up. 2,500 is the rookie numbers. We got to get these numbers up. Let's get to 10,000. Do the work. What do you do on this YouTube channel?
Document my B2B SaaS.
You document B2B SaaS. Wow. I'm going to subscribe to that right after I subscribe to watching paint dry. You got to do a little more than B2B SaaS. Yeah, of course. I love Squarespace. Use the code TWIST for 10% off. Oh, okay. Well, listen, SEO is super important. Squarespace is my favorite content management system. So use this code or use my code, get whatever % off.
And as you can tell by the video, Jason roasted me a little bit. You know, he said my YouTube channel, he'd rather subscribe to watching paint dry, which hopefully you guys aren't feeling now. But this really taught me quite a big lesson. I've been listening to Jason's personal podcast, This Week in Startups, for 7 years. I've learned a ton from him. I wouldn't say I idolize him for anything like that, but he's someone that I really looked up to. And as you could tell from that clip, he really did not care who I was. And that's completely okay. You know, people are going up to speak to him all the time. This isn't me blaming Jason or anything like that. But the lesson that I really learned, and this is something that I think is important to take away from, people do not care who you are and they do not care what you're doing until you give them a reason to care. You know, of course, I didn't explain what I do in a very good way, but if you look at, you know, multi-millionaires like Jason, billionaires like Elon Musk, Chamath, all those sort of people, they do not care who you are. They've got tons of people trying to get their attention. They do not care who you are or what you do unless you give them a reason to care. So if you butcher your explanation of what you do, if you stop working hard in order to build a reason why people should care, if you don't put in that hard work, people are not going to care. So if you ultimately want to attract people's attention, whether that be customers, whether it be advisors, whether it be billionaires like I tried to do at the event, if you ultimately want to attract the attention of people that are going to help grow your business, improve your life, and to provide value to them, you need to work really, really hard, put in the work, and build something that is worthy of grabbing their attention. Because just like you saw with Jason, he did not care, and I don't blame him for that either. You know, I don't blame him for not caring. I don't blame him for not necessarily, like, I guess, saying that what I do is like paint drying, because that is ultimately on me. I did not give him a reason to care, and I'm not going to stop working until the people that I want to get the attention of care about what I'm doing, so I can provide value and ultimately build my businesses. Now, moving on to lesson 4. This lesson actually comes from Elon Musk. It also comes from a guy called Sergey, who is the co-founder of Google, and it also came from Mark Benioff as well as Peter Thiel. Mark Benioff is the founder of Salesforce, and Peter Thiel was the first investor in Facebook. And obviously, due to the time that we're in at the moment, one of the hot topics is AI. And the best is the guy that do the All In podcast. Ask these guys what they think about AI, where they think the opportunity is. And what Peter Thiel said actually really interested me and taught me this 4th lesson. He said that all these different buzzwords, all these different things that people are saying, they're ultimately buzzwords. He prefers to focus on people and teams that are capable of building incredible things. And Elon Musk actually said, you know, if you look at people like Facebook, Google, Microsoft, the spending on AI far outweighs the revenue that they're earning from it. If you actually look at who's making the money from AI, it's actually Nvidia, who is building all of the CPUs that AIs are running on. All of these learning models and AI, they're all running on Nvidia chips. And this was really interesting to me because just like in the gold rush, how the people that made the shovels and the machines were the ones that ultimately made the money, it's the same in AI, and it's the same with all of these technological waves that come, particularly in the early days. The people that make the money are companies like Nvidia, who are building the shovels that people need in order to build these AI things on top of. And that's a really key lesson, because when you're going about growing your business, if you can be a business that builds shovels rather than the people digging up the gold, you're going to be a lot more leverage, and potentially you're going to make a lot more money because you're putting yourself as an enabler within an economy. And when you position yourself as an enabler or a shovel, those people tend to earn a lot more money. And when you listen to people like Peter Thiel, Mark Benioff, you can tell that they're also looking for shovels to invest in or build within the companies. Another example of that, there was actually a talk from the CEO of Waymo, which I am going to butcher a name, apologies. It's Tekendra Mawakana. And essentially, Waymo builds self-driving cars. But actually how they build self-driving cars is by building the technology, which I had a photo on the screen, that turns normal cars into self-driving cars. And when the CEO of Waymo did a talk, she actually said that what they're trying to build is the world's most trusted driver. So they're building the technology to turn cars into self-driving cars. So they're building the technology. So it means whenever there's a self-driving car going out, whenever there's a Waymo converted car, all of those lessons, all of the footage, all of the things that that car interacts with is going back to train this central computer, this central driver in order to build the world's best driver. i.e., it's building the tools, the shovel to create self-driving cars, which means all of these car companies, Toyota, Ford, all of these companies will buy Waymo's technology in order to turn their cars into self-driving. So when you buy a Ford in the future and you're going through and you're speccing it and you check, make it self-driving, that technology will come from Waymo. I just think that's another incredible example of a company that is ultimately building shovels. And I think that's why Waymo will do so well, because they're creating that centralized technology, that centralized, most trusted driver in the world to build the shovel, i.e. an enabler to the self-driving future. So yeah, that's a fourth lesson. Build a shovel. I'm going to try and make my businesses more of a shovel, and you should probably do the same. Now, moving on to the fifth lesson, and maybe if you watch this video hoping to get like a specific piece of information to make more money, and I think that is lesson 6 that I'll touch upon in a second. But lesson 5 is more of a general lesson and a principle. One thing that I got from the All In conference is you're spending time around billionaires. I spoke to billionaires. I had dinner with incredible people. I even sat next to the personal lawyer of some of the richest people in the world. And when you speak to these people, and when you speak to, there was even a guy who was running a SaaS business that was doing about 250k MRR. So very aspirational for me, these people that are doing incredible things, built incredible businesses. And when you speak to these people, there's a commonality that I notice across all of them. These successful people, when they think about scenarios and they think about problems, they always approach it from a very rational first principle approach. A really good example of this is Elon Musk. If you look at Elon Musk's interviews, and when I was there with him in person, they asked him a question. Elon Musk can even sit sometimes for like 20 seconds thinking through stuff. During that 20 seconds, from what I've observed from spending time with billionaires and very successful people, what they're actually doing is, even if they don't fully know the answer to a certain situation, what they're doing is applying first principles. They're thinking through it in a very rational way in order to provide a calculated response. They're not responding to things irrationally. They're thinking through things. And I think that's a really interesting contrast from people that have maybe seen do well in business but get stuck at a certain point, compared to these people that build some of the biggest businesses in the world. They tend to all think in the same way. They think very rationally from a principle-based approach. Now, of course, their principles may be different, but at least by approaching things in a principle-based approach, what they're actually able to do is they're able to arrive at answers that align with the previous success that they've had. And even if they don't know the answer, they're able to apply that thinking and get to, over a period of time, a much better outcome. So yeah, if you or I can take any lesson away from this, I think what it is just being able to take a step back at things, whether it's doing meditation in the morning, being more mindful, so that ultimately when you come up to these scenarios in business, in life, you're able to be rational, you're able to have the principles that you apply, you're able to have the principles that are important to you, and then apply them to those situations so you can ultimately get to better outcomes. And yeah, that was a huge lesson for me. And I think it is definitely going to shape how I approach business in the next 5 to 10 years. Now, moving on to the 6th lesson, and this is something that directly came from Elon Musk and is maybe more of a direct lesson and direct thing that maybe you can profit on. Obviously, Elon Musk is probably the most successful entrepreneur of our generation and maybe even of the world. And he's going to be the person that makes humans multiplanetary. And he delivered a talk. It was about an hour long. Again, you can listen to it through the All In Podcasts YouTube channel, which I'll add as the first link in the description. And in this hour-long talk, one thing stood out to me. He said that in the next 10 to 20 years, there's going to be between, I think it was up to 3 times the amount of humanoid robots as humans. So it's a little bit like an iRobot in that situation, if you ever remember that movie. There's going to be 3 times the amount of those human robots as there is going to be humans. And he said that this is going to be the biggest financial opportunity ever. So Elon Musk thinks the biggest financial opportunity that is going to come in the human history, in the history of Earth, is going to be these humanoid robots. Now, I don't know necessarily if that's just going to be from building them, maybe also the maintenance as well. I don't know. I think maybe all added together. But maybe if you're looking for a new business opportunity in 10 to 20 years, maybe you need to get into building these robots somehow, or even how to maintain them. Or if you think back to lesson 4, somehow figuring out how you can be a shovel in that humanoid robot economy. So there you are, guys. Hopefully you've enjoyed this video, and hopefully you've learned from the 6 lessons that I paid $12,000 to learn from Billionaires. Now, if you did enjoy this video, I did actually vlog the whole conference, the whole of the All In conference. So I'll add that as a second link in the description if you want to learn more and if you want to see firsthand what it was like to go to All In conference. And of course, as JCal did say earlier in the video, 2,500, those are rookie numbers. We need to get those numbers up. So please subscribe to this YouTube channel so that Jason doesn't roast me anymore. And hopefully I'll see you in the next video.